Little girl calls 911 from the laundry and says my belly got dirty along with clothes. Police cry. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of the Central Emergency Dispatch Center, casting long shadows across rows of computers and headsets where operators worked with practiced efficiency. Jennifer Wallace, a 20-year veteran of the 911 system, adjusted her headset and took a sip of her lukewarm coffee, preparing for another routine shift in what had already been a quiet Thursday. The phone lines had been relatively calm, mostly traffic incidents and minor medical emergencies, the kind of calls that kept her busy but didn't weigh too heavily on her heart. That was about to change in ways she couldn't have predicted. At exactly 2:47 in the afternoon, her screen lit up with an incoming call, and Jennifer clicked to answer with her standard greeting. 911, what's your emergency? What she heard on the other end made her sit up straighter, her professional instincts immediately alerting her that something was very wrong. The voice was small, barely above a whisper, belonging to a child who was clearly struggling to speak through tears and shallow, panicked breaths. My belly got dirty, the child said, each word punctuated by a sob that tore at Jennifer's maternal heart, along with the clothes. Jennifer's fingers flew across her keyboard, immediately flagging the call as priority and beginning location tracking. Sweetheart, can you tell me your name? Where are you right now? She asked, keeping her voice gentle and reassuring despite the alarm bells ringing in her mind. The background noise was distinctive, the rhythmic churning and swooshing of washing machines, the occasional beep of a dryer, sounds that Jennifer recognized from her own trips to the laundromat. The child's breathing grew more ragged, and Jennifer could hear her struggling to form words. It burns, the little voice whimpered, and he left me here. Jennifer's pulse quickened as she typed notes rapidly, her mind racing through protocols for child emergency calls. Who left you there, honey? Can you tell me who you're with? But before the child could answer, there was a sound like the phone being dropped or fumbled, followed by more crying, and then the line went dead. Jennifer immediately activated emergency protocols, pulling up the cell tower data that had traced the call to an approximate location in the Riverside neighborhood, specifically near Mason Street, where she knew there was a community laundry facility. She dispatched the call with highest priority. All units, we have a possible child in distress, located at or near Riverside Community Laundry on Mason Street. Caller is a young female, possibly injured, reporting pain and abandonment. Officers needed for immediate welfare check. 2 officers responded within seconds, their voices crackling over the radio. Officer Sarah Mitchell and Officer Elena Rodriguez, both from the 3rd Precinct and both known for their excellent work with vulnerable populations. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. We're 3 minutes from that location, responding code 2. Sarah's calm voice came through, and Jennifer felt a small measure of relief knowing that these particular officers were taking the call. Sarah Mitchell, 38 years old with 12 years on the force, was the mother of 2 daughters herself. She'd built a reputation as someone who could handle difficult situations involving children with a perfect balance of authority and compassion. Her partner for this shift, Elena Rodriguez, was equally skilled, a 7-year veteran who specialized in victim advocacy and had completed extensive training in trauma-informed response. As their patrol car raced through the afternoon traffic, Sarah glanced at Elena, both women sharing a look of concern. Child welfare calls are always the hardest, Elena said quietly, checking that she had gloves and a first aid kit readily accessible. Sarah nodded, her hands steady on the wheel but her mind already preparing for whatever they might find. The fact that she called 911 herself means she knew she needed help. That's good. But the pain she mentioned and someone leaving her alone, that's concerning. They'd both worked enough cases to know that when children called emergency services, it was often because their situation had become desperate beyond what a child should have to handle alone. The patrol car pulled up outside Riverside Community Laundry, a modest brick building with large windows that revealed rows of washing machines and dryers inside. From the outside, everything looked normal. Just another afternoon at a neighborhood laundry where people came and went with baskets of clothes. But Sarah and Elena knew that normalcy could hide countless problems, that behind any door might be a child who needed them. They entered quickly but not aggressively, not wanting to frighten whoever they were looking for. The laundry was nearly empty. Just an elderly man folding clothes at a table near the front, and a middle-aged woman loading a dryer in the back. And there, in the corner near a row of washing machines that were still running, sat a little girl who matched the age of the voice they'd heard described. The sight of her made both officers' hearts clench with professional concern and personal empathy. The child was small, probably around 8 years old, with brown hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in days, falling in tangled waves around her pale face. She wore a faded pink dress that was stained and damp, and she sat on the floor next to a plastic bucket, where she appeared to be trying to wash clothes by hand. But what caught their attention immediately was how she held herself, one arm wrapped protectively around her middle, her small body curled slightly forward, as if guarding against pain. Her belly area looked distended, pushing against the thin fabric of her dress in a way that wasn't normal for a child her size. Sarah approached first, moving slowly and deliberately so as not to startle the little girl. She knelt down about 6 feet away, making herself smaller and less intimidating. "Hi there, sweetheart. My name is Officer Mitchell, and this is Officer Rodriguez. Did you call 911 a little while ago?" The child's head snapped up, her eyes wide with fear, and Sarah could see tear tracks cutting through the dirt on her cheeks. For a long moment, the girl just stared at them, her body tensing as if preparing to run, and Sarah held very still, letting the child process their presence. Finally, the little girl nodded slowly, and her voice came out in a whisper that was almost lost in the noise of the running machines. "Please don't yell at me," she said, her words carrying such a weight of resignation that it broke something inside both officers. "I didn't do anything wrong." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them back, maintaining her professional composure while letting her face show nothing but kindness. "Oh, honey, we're not here to yell at you. We're here to help you. You did exactly the right thing by calling us." Elena moved to Sarah's side, pulling out a small bottle of water from her utility belt. "Can we come a little closer? You look like you might be hurt, and we want to make sure you're okay." The child hesitated, then nodded again, and the officers closed the distance between them. Up close, the situation looked even more concerning than it had from across the room. The girl's dress was not just dirty, but had chemical stains on it, and there were reddish marks on her exposed arms that looked like mild chemical burns. Her belly was definitely swollen, pushing against her dress in a way that could indicate several serious medical conditions. Sarah knelt right beside her now, her voice gentle as a lullaby. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" "Lily," the child whispered, and saying her own name seemed to open a floodgate because suddenly words tumbled out between sobs. "Lily Cooper. My daddy brought me here to wash clothes, but then he had to go to an interview and he said he'd come back, but it's been so long and my belly hurts so bad, and something hot got on me from the machine and I don't know what to do." Elena immediately radioed for an ambulance, keeping her voice low and calm so as not to alarm Lily further. Sarah gently touched Lily's shoulder, feeling the child flinch slightly before relaxing into the contact. "Lily, that's a beautiful name. You're being so brave right now. We're going to get you some help, okay? When did your belly start hurting?" Lily's face crumpled and she pressed her hands against her stomach. "It's been hurting for a long time, but today it got worse. Daddy used some stuff to clean the clothes and it splashed and it burned, and then everything hurt more." Lena stood and quickly examined the washing machines that were still running, noting the strong chemical smell that definitely wasn't regular laundry detergent. She took photos of several industrial cleaning product bottles that sat open on a nearby shelf, clearly not meant for use with regular laundry, and certainly not meant to be handled without protection. Her jaw tightened as she realized what had probably happened. Someone inexperienced with laundry had grabbed whatever cleaning products were available, mixed them without understanding the danger, and created a caustic solution that had splashed on a child. Sarah continued talking to Lily, keeping her distracted while Elena documented the scene. "Lily, honey, where's your daddy now? Do you know when he left?" Lily's lower lip trembled. "He got a phone call about a job. and he was so excited, and he said he'd just be gone for a little bit. But that was a really long time ago. I tried to call him, but he didn't answer. Sarah exchanged a glance with Elena over Lily's head, both of them thinking the same thing. Where was this child's father, and why had he left her alone in a public laundry for what sounded like hours? The ambulance arrived within minutes, and 2 paramedics entered with their equipment. Lily's eyes went wide with fresh fear, and she grabbed Sarah's hand tightly. "Are they going to take me away from Daddy?" she asked, and the question revealed so much about her priorities. Even in pain and scared, she was worried about her father. Sarah squeezed her hand gently. "They're going to take you to the hospital so doctors can make sure you're okay, and we're going to find your daddy and let him know where you are. Would that be all right?" Lily nodded reluctantly, and the paramedics moved in with practiced efficiency, their faces showing professional concern as they began their assessment. One of them, a woman named Carmen with kind eyes, knelt beside Lily. "Hi, Lily, I'm Carmen. I'm going to check you over real quick, okay? Can you show me where it hurts the most?" Lily pointed to her belly, and Carmen very gently lifted the hem of her dress just enough to see her abdomen. What she saw made her expression tighten, and she immediately signaled to her partner. The child's belly was significantly distended, with visible inflammation, and what appeared to be fluid retention. Combined with the chemical burns on her skin and her obvious state of neglect, this was a medical emergency. "We need to transport now," Carmen said quietly to the officers, then turned back to Lily with a smile that didn't quite hide her concern. "Lily, sweetie, we're going to take you for a ride in the ambulance to the hospital. Have you ever been in an ambulance before?" Lily shook her head, her eyes filling with tears again. Sarah made a quick decision. "Lily, Officer Rodriguez and I are going to follow right behind the ambulance in our car, and we'll be at the hospital with you. You won't be alone, okay?" The promise seemed to give Lily some comfort, and she allowed the paramedics to help her onto a gurney. As they wheeled her out, Elena went to speak with the elderly man and the woman who'd been in the laundry, both of whom had watched the scene unfold with expressions of shock and concern. "Did either of you see when the little girl came in or who she was with?" Elena asked, pulling out her notepad. The elderly man nodded slowly. "Yeah, she came in with a man maybe 2-3 hours ago. He was fumbling around with the machines, seemed kind of out of it, you know. They had bags of clothes and he was loading machines. Then his phone rang, and he talked for a minute and left. I didn't think much of it at the time, figured he was just running to the store or something. Didn't realize he'd left her alone all this time." The woman added, "I only came in about 20 minutes ago, but I noticed her over there trying to wash clothes in that bucket. Poor thing. I almost went over to ask if she needed help, but then I saw you officers come in." Elena took their contact information and thanked them, then hurried out to where Sarah was already in the patrol car, engine running. They followed the ambulance through traffic, lights flashing, and Sarah used the time to radio in for additional resources. "Dispatch Unit 12. We need Child Protective Services notified, and we need to locate a David Cooper, last known address in Riverside neighborhood. He's the father of the victim, and he left her unattended at the laundry location. Also need someone to contact Riverside Elementary to see if they have records for a Lily Cooper." Jennifer's voice came back immediately. "Copy that, Unit 12. Already pulling information and notifying CPS. Hospital is Riverside General?" "Affirmative," Sarah confirmed, then added quietly to Elena, "That belly swelling isn't normal. I've seen enough kids to know that's not just from today's incident." Elena nodded grimly. "This has been building for a while. Whatever's going on with this family, it's more than just a father making a mistake with laundry detergent." At Riverside General Hospital, they pulled into the emergency bay right behind the ambulance and followed as Lily was rushed inside. The ER was bustling with its usual controlled chaos, but a triage nurse immediately recognized the severity of Lily's condition and directed them to a pediatric examination room. Dr. Patricia Nguyen, the attending pediatric physician, entered quickly, her experienced eyes taking in Lily's condition in seconds. "Hello, Lily, I'm Dr. Nguyen. These nice officers told me you're not feeling well. I'm going to take a look at you and figure out how to make you feel better. Okay? Lily nodded weakly, clearly exhausted from pain and fear. Sarah stood near the head of the bed, maintaining the connection they'd formed, while Elena stepped out to coordinate with hospital security and social services. Dr. Nguyen conducted a thorough but gentle examination, asking Lily questions about her symptoms, when the pain started, what she'd eaten recently. With each answer, the doctor's expression grew more concerned. Lily, when was the last time you had a good meal? Something with vegetables and protein? Dr. Nguyen asked kindly. Lily thought hard, her face scrunching up with concentration. I had cereal yesterday morning, I think. Sometimes Daddy brings home food from his friend, but we haven't had groceries in a while. The doctor nodded, making notes, then said, I need to order some tests, some pictures of your belly so I can see what's happening inside. Have you ever had an X-ray or ultrasound before? Lily shook her head, and Dr. Nguyen explained the procedures in simple terms that wouldn't frighten the child. As they waited for the imaging department to prepare, a nurse came in to start an IV for fluids and to clean and treat the chemical burns on Lily's skin. The nurse, whose name tag read Michael, worked with gentle efficiency, chatting with Lily about her favorite colors and school subjects to keep her mind off the medical procedures. Sarah stepped out to join Elena in the hallway, where a representative from Child Protective Services had just arrived. Margaret Stone was a veteran social worker in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, and eyes that had seen too much suffering, but somehow retained their kindness. Officers, give me the rundown, Margaret said, pulling out her tablet to take notes. Elena provided a concise summary of how they'd found Lily, her condition, and what little they knew about her father. Margaret's expression grew more troubled as she listened. Do we know anything about the mother? She asked, and Sarah shook her head. Lily hasn't mentioned a mother, and we're still pulling records. Dispatch is working on locating the father now. As if on cue, Sarah's radio crackled to life. Unit 12, this is Dispatch. We've located David Cooper. He's currently at the intersection of 5th and Main, appears disoriented. Unit 7 is with him now and bringing him to Riverside General. Sarah acknowledged the transmission, then turned to Margaret. Looks like we'll have answers soon about where he's been. Dr. Nguyen emerged from the examination room, her face grave, and gestured for the officers and Margaret to join her in a small consultation room. Once they were seated, she pulled up images on a computer screen. This is serious, she began without preamble. Lily has peritonitis, which is inflammation of the tissue that lines the abdominal wall. In her case, it appears to be caused by a combination of severe malnutrition, poor hygiene, and what looks like a low-grade infection that's been present for weeks, possibly months. She pointed to areas on the scan. The swelling in her abdomen is fluid accumulation from the infection and inflammation. The chemical burns she sustained today certainly didn't help, but they're actually the least of our concerns. If she hadn't come in today, if she'd waited even another 24 hours, we could be looking at sepsis, organ failure. Margaret closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed determination. Prognosis? Good, if we act now, Dr. Nguyen said. We're starting aggressive antibiotic treatment and IV fluids. She'll need to be admitted, probably for at least a week. We'll also need to address the malnutrition with careful nutritional support. Beyond the immediate medical concerns, this child shows signs of chronic neglect. She turned to look at all of them directly. I'm required to file a report with CPS, which I see is already in progress. But I want to be clear. This situation has been developing for a long time. Someone should have noticed. Teachers, neighbors, someone. Sarah felt the familiar weight of these cases, the knowledge that there were probably warning signs that had been missed or ignored. We'll make sure a full investigation happens, she assured Dr. Nguyen. A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Through the consultation room's window, they could see two officers escorting a man in his mid-30s, disheveled and agitated. David Cooper had arrived. David's eyes were wild, scanning the emergency room desperately, and when he spotted the consultation room, he tried to push past the officers. "Where's my daughter? Where's Lily? I need to see her." Sarah stepped out to intercept him, her hand raised in a calming gesture. "Mr. Cooper, I'm Officer Mitchell. Lily is safe and being treated by doctors right now. I need you to calm down so we can talk." Up close, David looked like a man coming apart at the seams. His clothes were rumpled. He smelled of alcohol, his hair stuck up at odd angles, and his face was red and blotchy from what appeared to be crying. But it was his eyes that told the real story. They were filled with such desperate fear and regret that Sarah's professional detachment wavered slightly. "Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. I only left for a little while. I just had this interview, this chance at a job, and I thought I'd be quick." The words tumbled out in a rush, and David's hands shook as he ran them through his hair. Elena joined them, her voice firm but not unkind. "Mr. Cooper, you left your 8-year-old daughter alone in a public laundry for over 3 hours. She called 911 because she was in pain and scared. We need to understand what's been happening." David's face crumpled, and he seemed to fold in on himself. I know, I messed up. I've been messing up for so long, but I love her. I love my baby girl more than anything. Can I please just see her?" Margaret Stone stepped forward, introducing herself. "Mr. Cooper, I'm from Child Protective Services. Yes, you can see Lily, but first I need to ask you some questions. When was the last time Lily had a proper meal?" David's mouth opened and closed, and tears started streaming down his face. "I don't know. A couple days? I've been trying so hard, but I lost my job 2 years ago, and then Anna died, and everything just fell apart." "Anna?" Margaret prompted gently. "My wife, Lily's mother. She died 3 years ago. Heart problem that we couldn't afford to treat properly. No insurance." David's voice broke. "I was supposed to take care of Lily, be both parents, but I just kept failing. I started drinking to deal with it, and then I couldn't keep jobs, couldn't pay bills, couldn't do anything right. But I never meant to hurt her. I would never hurt her." Sarah exchanged glances with Elena and Margaret. This wasn't a case of intentional cruelty, but of a man drowning in grief and circumstances, pulling his daughter down with him. That didn't excuse the neglect, but it did provide context for what would happen next. "Mr. Cooper, your daughter is very sick," Dr. Nguyen said, joining the group. "She has a serious infection and shows signs of prolonged malnutrition and neglect. We're treating her now, but this didn't happen overnight." David's knees seemed to give out, and one of the officers caught his arm to steady him. "Is she going to be okay?" he whispered. "We believe so with treatment," Dr. Nguyen said. "But Mr. Cooper, you need to understand that your daughter could have died. She's 8 years old and she had to call 911 herself because she was scared and in pain and alone. That should never happen." The words hit David like physical blows, and he nodded, tears still flowing. I know. What happens now?" Margaret took a breath. "Right now, Lily needs medical care and stability. Given the circumstances, CPS will be taking temporary custody. You'll have supervised visitation, but Lily will be placed in a foster home while we assess the situation and determine what steps need to be taken." David's face went white. "You're taking her away from me?" "This is about keeping Lily safe while we figure out how to help your family," Margaret said firmly but kindly. "If you're willing to participate in services, therapy, substance evaluation, and treatment, we can work toward reunification. But right now, your daughter's safety is the priority." David seemed to age 10 years in front of them, but slowly he nodded. "Can I see her? Can I tell her I'm sorry?" Dr. Nguyen considered, then nodded. "A brief visit, supervised. But Mr. Cooper, I need you to be calm. She's frightened and in pain, and she needs reassurance, not more distress." They led David to Lily's room where she lay in the hospital bed, looking impossibly small, surrounded by machines and monitors. When she saw her father, her face lit up despite everything. "Daddy," she said, reaching out her hand. David moved to her bedside, taking her hand carefully, mindful of the IV. "Baby girl, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left you. I'm sorry for everything." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Are you mad at me for calling the police?" The question broke what was left of David's composure. No, baby, no. You did exactly the right thing. You were so brave. I'm not mad. I'm just sad that you had to be that scared. They stayed like that for several minutes, father and daughter crying together, while the officers and Margaret watched from the doorway. Finally, Margaret gently intervened. Lily, honey, your daddy needs to go talk to some people now, but you're going to stay here in the hospital where the doctors can help you feel better. Lily's grip tightened on her father's hand. When can I come home, Daddy? David looked to Margaret, who stepped forward. Lily, for now, you're going to stay in the hospital until you're all better. Then you're going to go stay with a very nice family who will take care of you for a little while. Your daddy is going to work on getting better too, and then we'll see about you two being together again. Understanding dawned slowly on Lily's face, followed by fresh tears. I have to go live with strangers? Sarah moved to the other side of the bed. I know it's scary, Lily, but remember how brave you were today? You're going to need to be brave a little longer. The family you'll stay with, they help kids just like you, and they'll make sure you have food and clean clothes and everything you need. Lily looked between her father and the officers, processing this new reality. Finally, she nodded, though more tears slipped down her cheeks. David had to be gently pulled away, his own tears flowing freely. I love you, Lily. I love you so much. I'm going to fix this, I promise. I love you too, Daddy, Lily whispered back. Once David was escorted out, Sarah stayed with Lily while Dr. Negian returned to explain more about the treatment plan. Over the next several hours, Lily underwent further tests, received medications, and gradually began to stabilize. Sarah and Elena took turns staying with her, neither wanting the child to be alone. Late that evening, a couple arrived. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, experienced foster parents who specialized in emergency placements. They were warm and gentle, speaking softly to Lily and showing her pictures of their home, their dog, and the room that would be hers. We're going to take such good care of you, Mrs. Martinez said, smoothing Lily's hair back from her forehead. You just focus on getting better, and when the doctors say you're ready, you'll come stay with us. We'll make sure you have everything you need. Lily was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, and she simply nodded, too tired to protest or question anymore. As Sarah and Elena finally prepared to leave, finishing their reports and handing off to the next shift, Sarah paused at Lily's door one more time. The little girl was already asleep, finally peaceful with pain medication and proper medical care. Think she'll be okay? Elena asked quietly. Sarah nodded slowly. Yeah, I think so. She's strong, and now she's got people looking out for her. The real question is whether we can help the father become the parent he wants to be. Not everyone can be saved, Elena observed, and Sarah knew it was true. They'd seen countless cases where the system tried to reunify families, only to have the parents fail again. But they'd also seen success stories, families torn apart by tragedy and circumstances who found their way back to each other with proper support. We have to try, Sarah said finally, and Elena nodded agreement. Back at the station, as they filed their final reports for the day, they learned that David Cooper had agreed to voluntary admission to a psychiatric facility for evaluation and treatment. It was a first step, and whether it would lead anywhere positive remained to be seen. Jennifer Wallace, the dispatcher who'd first taken Lily's call, stopped by to check on the outcome. How's the little girl? She asked, and Sarah gave her an update. Jennifer shook her head. In 20 years, I've taken thousands of calls. But something about that tiny voice saying her belly got dirty with the clothes, it just broke my heart. She called for help, Sarah said. That takes courage most adults don't have. She's going to be okay. And somehow, saying it out loud made it feel more true. 3 weeks passed in a blur of medical treatment, case management meetings, and careful monitoring. Lily remained in the hospital for 10 days, her infection slowly responding to antibiotics, her body gradually healing from months of neglect. Dr. Nguyen oversaw her care personally, ensuring not just that the infection cleared, but that Lily received proper nutrition, vitamins, and the beginning of dental work for cavities that had gone untreated. The Martinezes visited every day, bringing small gifts, reading to Lily and slowly building trust. When Lily was finally discharged, she went home with them, her few belongings fitting in a single small bag. The transition was hard. Everything felt strange and new. But Mrs. Martinez's gentle patience and Mr. Martinez's silly jokes gradually helped Lily relax. David, meanwhile, was going through his own difficult transition in the treatment facility. The first week was the hardest, detoxing from alcohol and facing the depression he'd been drowning in alcohol to avoid. His therapist, Dr. Marcus Chen, was direct but compassionate, pushing David to confront the grief he'd never properly processed over his wife's death and his subsequent failures as a father. "You can't change what's already happened," Dr. Chen told him during one particularly difficult session where David had broken down completely. "But you can choose what happens next. The question is, are you willing to do the work?" David, red-eyed and exhausted, had nodded. "I have to, for Lily. She deserves better than what I've been giving her. She deserves a father who's healthy and present," Dr. Chen agreed. "That starts with you being willing to forgive yourself for being human and making mistakes, while also taking full responsibility for those mistakes. Those two things can exist together." It was a concept David struggled with, the idea that he could acknowledge his failures without being destroyed by shame. But slowly, through daily therapy, group sessions with other fathers dealing with similar issues, and the structure of the treatment program, David began to see a path forward. Margaret Stone arranged for supervised visits between David and Lily after 3 weeks. The first visit was at the CPS offices, in a comfortable room designed to feel more like a living room than an institutional space. When Lily walked in with Mrs. Martinez, she stopped short seeing her father. David looked different, cleaner, more present somehow. His eyes were clear, and while he still carried the weight of everything that had happened, he stood straighter. "Hi, baby girl," he said softly, not moving toward her, but letting her come to him if she chose. Lily hesitated, then slowly walked over and let him hug her. They sat on the couch together, Margaret nearby but giving them space, and talked. David asked about her health, her time with the Martinezes, what she'd been drawing and reading. Lily asked if he was feeling better, if he was eating enough, if he missed her. "Every single day," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "I think about you every single day, and I'm working so hard to become the daddy you deserve." "I just want you to be happy, Daddy," Lily said, and David had to take a moment to compose himself. "I'm trying, sweetheart. For the first time in a long time, I'm really trying." The visits continued weekly, then twice weekly, each one showing incremental progress. David completed his inpatient program and transitioned to a halfway house where he continued intensive outpatient therapy while starting a job training program. Lily thrived with the Martinezes, gaining weight, catching up on schoolwork, and beginning to smile more freely. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed the dramatic change and worked closely with the school counselor to provide additional support. The counselor, Ms. Roberts, met with Lily twice a week, helping her process everything that had happened. "It's okay to love your dad and also be mad at him for what happened," Ms. Roberts explained during one session. "Those feelings can both be true at the same time." Lily drew pictures during their sessions, a safe way to express emotions she couldn't always put into words. One picture showed a house torn in half, with a little girl standing in the middle. Another showed two figures, one big and one small, holding hands with a rainbow above them. "That's the future," Lily explained, pointing to the second picture. "That's me and Daddy when he gets better." 3 months after that day in the laundry, a larger case review meeting was held. David, now looking healthier than anyone had seen him in years, sat with his sponsor from AA and a victim advocate. Lily attended with the Martinezes and Ms. Roberts. Margaret Stone led the meeting, reviewing David's progress, successful completion of addiction treatment, ongoing therapy, stable employment as a trainee mechanic at a local shop, consistent attendance at all appointments and visits, and progress in securing appropriate housing. Judge Barbara Thompson, who oversaw the family court case, reviewed the reports from everyone involved. "Mr. Cooper," she said, looking at David directly, "the progress you've made is commendable. It's clear you've done the hard work required. However, we're not just looking at where you are now, but at your ability to maintain this progress long term. David nodded. I understand, Your Honor. I know I have to prove I can do this not just for a few months, but forever. I know earning back Lily's trust and everyone's confidence will take time. Judge Thompson turned to Lily. Lily, you've been very brave through all of this. How do you feel about the visits with your dad? Lily looked at her father, then back at the judge. I like seeing him. He seems happier now. He asks about my day and remembers things I tell him. He's more like he used to be before Mama died. The judge nodded. If I said you could start having overnight visits with your dad in a month or two, how would you feel about that? Lily's face brightened. Really? I could go home? Not permanently yet, Judge Thompson clarified gently, but spending weekends together with check-ins from social services. Would that be something you'd want? Yes, Lily said immediately, then looked at the Martinezes with sudden worry. But I'd still get to see Mr. and Mrs. Martinez too, right? Mrs. Martinez smiled reassuringly. Of course, honey. We're not going anywhere. Even when you go back to living with your dad full-time, we'll still be part of your life if you want us to be. The relief on Lily's face was palpable. A plan was established. Continued weekly therapy for both David and Lily. Bi-weekly family therapy sessions together. Weekend visits starting in 6 weeks pending David securing approved housing. And full reunification to be considered after 6 months of successful overnight visits. It wasn't the immediate happy ending Lily wanted, but it was a path forward. And that was something. Over the following months, the plan unfolded gradually. David found a small 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood, approved by CPS after thorough inspection. He furnished Lily's room with help from a community assistance program, making sure she had a comfortable bed, a desk for homework, and shelves for books. The first overnight visit was nerve-wracking for everyone involved. David made Lily's favorite dinner, spaghetti with meatballs, and they ate together at the small kitchen table, talking about school and Lily's new interest in soccer. After dinner, they watched a movie together, and when bedtime came, David tucked Lily in just like he used to when she was younger, before everything fell apart. Daddy, Lily said sleepily, I'm glad you're better. David felt tears prick his eyes, but blinked them back. Me too, baby girl, me too, sweet dreams. The overnight visits became routine, then weekends, then extended weekends. There were bumps along the way, a day when David felt overwhelmed and had to call his sponsor for support, a night when Lily had a nightmare about being left alone and needed extra reassurance. But they worked through each challenge with the support system now surrounding them. Dr. Chen, Ms. Roberts, the Martinezes, Officer Mitchell who checked in occasionally, and the community that had rallied around this broken family. 9 months after that desperate 911 call from a laundry, another court hearing was held. This time, the recommendation was for full reunification. Judge Thompson looked at David, then at Lily, then back at the reports from therapists, social workers, teachers, and employers. Mr. Cooper, you've shown sustained commitment to your recovery and to being the father Lily needs, she said. Lily, you've shown remarkable resilience and the ability to express your needs and feelings. Based on all the evidence before me, I'm ordering that custody be fully restored to David Cooper, with continued voluntary involvement with family services for the next year. Lily squealed with happiness and hugged her father, who lifted her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at once. The Martinezes watched with bittersweet smiles, happy for the reunion but knowing they'd miss having Lily in their daily lives. Margaret Stone approached them after the hearing. You know, she said to David, most cases don't end this way. Most of the time, we can't put families back together because the parents aren't willing or able to do the work you did. What you accomplished here, it's not common. Be proud of that, but also remember how hard you worked to get here. David nodded seriously. I'll never forget. I came so close to losing everything that matters. I won't take a single day for granted. Moving day came, and the Martinezes helped David and Lily transport her belongings from their house to the apartment that was now officially home again. Mrs. Martinez cried a little as she hugged Lily goodbye, and Mr. Martinez had to clear his throat several times. "You call us any time for anything," Mrs. Martinez said. "We mean it. You're part of our family now." That evening in their apartment, David and Lily sat together on the couch, a sense of peace settling over them. It had been a long, painful journey, but they'd made it through. "Daddy," Lily said, curled against his side, "do you think Mama would be proud of us?" David thought about Anna, about how much he'd failed her memory by falling apart after she died, but also about how hard he'd fought to climb back up. "I think she would," he said honestly. "I think she'd be proud of how brave you were, and how hard I worked to become a better man and father. And I think she'd be happy that we're together and okay." Lily nodded against his chest. "I'm going to write her a letter and tell her all about it." "I think that's a beautiful idea," David said, kissing the top of her head. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning, David and Lily walked into Riverside Community Laundry together, something David had been building up courage to do. It was the first time either had been back since that terrible day. The elderly man who'd been there that day looked up from his laundry and recognized them. "Well, I'll be," he said, a smile spreading across his weathered face. "You two look good. Real good." David extended his hand. "I'm David Cooper. I don't think we were properly introduced last time. I wanted to come back and thank you for being a witness, for helping the officers understand what happened." The man, whose name was Frank, shook his hand firmly. "You don't need to thank me, son. I'm just glad to see you both doing well. That's all the thanks anyone needs." They did their laundry together, father and daughter, talking and laughing, turning a place of trauma into just another ordinary location in their lives. It was symbolic, David knew, facing the scene of his greatest failure and transforming it into something normal. As they folded warm clothes fresh from the dryer, Lily looked up at her dad. "You know what? I'm really happy now." David felt his heart swell. "Me too, baby girl, me too." Officer Mitchell, on patrol in the area, happened to drive by and saw them through the laundry's big windows. She didn't stop in, didn't interrupt their moment, just smiled to herself and continued on. These were the wins that made the job worthwhile, the families that did the hard work and came out the other side. Back at the station later, she told Elena about seeing them. "The Cooper case had a good ending," she said, and they both savored that rare victory. Not every call ended well, not every child could be saved, not every parent could overcome their demons. But this time, in this case, everything aligned, the right intervention at the right time, a father willing to fight for change, a child resilient enough to heal, and a system that, for once, worked exactly as it should. Months turned into a year, and the anniversary of Lily's 911 call came around. David marked it privately, on his knees beside his bed, thanking whatever forces in the universe had made sure his daughter had the courage to ask for help and that people heard her. Lily marked it in her own way, drawing a picture for Officer Mitchell and having David help her deliver it to the police station. It showed 2 figures, one in a police uniform and one small child, holding hands, with the words, "Thank you for saving me," written in careful child's handwriting. Sarah Mitchell put it up in her locker, where it remained for years, a reminder of why she wore the badge. The story of Lily and David Cooper became something of a legend in the Riverside community, whispered about in waiting rooms and community centers. Not as a cautionary tale, though it certainly contained warnings, but as a story of hope, proof that even when everything falls apart, it can sometimes be put back together if people are willing to do the work and accept the help. Dr. Chen used their case with permission as a teaching example in his work training other therapists. "This," he told his students, "is what's possible when we meet people where they are, when we recognize that addiction and mental health crises don't make someone irredeemable, and when we provide structure and support alongside accountability." Margaret Stone, too, pointed to the Cooper case when newer social workers felt overwhelmed by the seeming impossibility of their jobs. "Most of the time, we're just trying to minimize harm," she admitted honestly. "But sometimes, if we're lucky and everyone does their part, we get to be part of real healing. Hold on to those cases. They'll sustain you through the hard ones. For Lily, the experience became part of her story, but not the defining chapter. She grew up, did well in school, maintained her love of art, and became known as someone who was kind to the kids who seemed sad or alone. When she was older, she sometimes thought about becoming a social worker or counselor, wanting to help other kids the way she'd been helped. David never forgot how close he came to losing everything. He stayed sober, attended his meetings faithfully, and became a sponsor to other fathers struggling with grief and addiction. He rebuilt his life slowly but surely, eventually being promoted at the mechanic shop and becoming known as someone reliable, someone who showed up. The relationship between Lily and David wasn't perfect. No relationship is. They had arguments and misunderstandings, typical father-daughter friction. But underneath it all was a foundation of honesty and love that had been forged through crisis and recovery. They knew how to talk to each other now, how to express feelings and ask for help. And they never forgot the Martinezes, who remained part of their extended chosen family, joining them for holidays and celebrations, proof that love takes many forms, and families can be built in unexpected ways. Years later, when Lily was preparing to graduate high school, David sat in the audience watching her walk across the stage, and he thought about that terrified little girl in a laundry, calling 911 with a tiny, frightened voice. He thought about how easily he could have lost her, how close he came to being just another tragic statistic. But instead, here she was, thriving and brilliant and strong, and here he was, sober and present and whole. After the ceremony, Lily ran to him, diploma in hand, and threw her arms around him. "We made it, Daddy," she said, and David held her tight. "You made it, baby girl. You saved both of us that day." And it was true. In calling for help, Lily had set in motion a chain of events that saved not just herself, but her father too. Sometimes rescue doesn't mean saving someone from a monster, but saving a broken family from a world that had forgotten them. Sometimes love needs help to heal, and healing needs time to work. But when a community chooses to lift up instead of give up, when individuals are willing to do the excruciating work of change, when children are brave enough to ask for help and adults are brave enough to accept it, miracles can happen in the most ordinary ways. That's the story of the little girl who called 911 from a laundry and said her belly got dirty along with the clothes. It's a story that started in crisis but ended in redemption, not because anyone was perfect, but because everyone involved chose to try. And that, in the end, makes all the difference. The story of Lily and David Cooper rippled outward in ways neither of them could have anticipated when they walked out of that courthouse together, custody restored and hope renewed. The weeks and months that followed their reunion, they discovered that healing wasn't a destination, but a journey with its own rhythms, setbacks, and unexpected gifts. David returned to work at Murphy's Auto Shop with renewed dedication, arriving early and staying late. Not because he was trying to escape home anymore, but because he genuinely took pride in his work and wanted to provide stability for Lily. His boss, Tom Murphy, a gruff man in his 60s who'd given David a second chance when few others would, noticed the change immediately. "You're different, Cooper," Tom said one afternoon as they closed up shop. "More solid somehow." David wiped his hands on a rag, considering how to explain the transformation. "I almost lost everything that mattered," he said finally. "When you come that close to the edge and step back, you see things differently. Every day I get with Lily now feels like a gift I don't deserve, but I'm grateful for anyway." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "You did the work to earn it. Don't forget that part." At home, Lily was navigating her own adjustments to their new normal life together. The apartment felt smaller after the spacious Martinez home, but it was theirs, and that made all the difference. She decorated her room with drawings and photos, creating a space that reflected who she was becoming, rather than who she'd been forced to be during those dark months of neglect. Mrs. Patterson at school continued to be a steady presence, checking in regularly and celebrating Lily's academic progress. The girl who'd once come to class in dirty clothes and fallen asleep at her desk now participated enthusiastically, her hand shooting up to answer questions, her homework completed carefully, and on time. "Lily, I'm so proud of how far you've come," Mrs. Patterson said one day after class. "You've worked incredibly hard." Lily beamed at the praise. "My dad helps me with homework now. He's really good at math." It was the simple statement of a child whose world had stabilized, but Mrs. Patterson understood the profound journey behind those words. She made a note to send a positive report to Margaret Stone, knowing that documentation of success was just as important as documentation of concerns had been. The relationship between Lily and the Martinezes evolved into something beautiful and unexpected. Rather than fading after reunification as sometimes happened with foster placements, their bond strengthened into a chosen family connection. Lily spent one weekend afternoon a month with them, helping Mrs. Martinez bake cookies and working with Mr. Martinez in his garden. "You know, mija," Mrs. Martinez said one Saturday as they rolled out cookie dough, "you can have many people who love you. Loving us doesn't mean you love your papa any less, and loving your papa doesn't mean you have to forget about us." Lily looked up, flour dusting her nose. "I know. Dad says I'm lucky to have so many people who care about me. He says it takes a village, whatever that means." Mrs. Martinez laughed warmly. "It means exactly what you're experiencing. It means nobody has to do everything alone." That concept, that radical notion that accepting help was strength rather than weakness, had transformed not just David and Lily's lives, but was beginning to influence their entire community. Inspired by their story, the Riverside Community Center launched a new program called Families First, designed to identify struggling families early and connect them with resources before crisis hit. Jennifer Wallace, the 911 dispatcher who'd first received Lily's call, volunteered to speak at the program's launch event. "I've been answering emergency calls for 20 years, she told the assembled crowd of social workers, teachers, neighbors, and community members. "And I can tell you that most emergencies build over time. They're not sudden explosions, but slow burns that could be extinguished if someone noticed the smoke and offered water before the flames got out of control." She shared Lily's story, with the family's permission, as an example of both system failure and system success. Multiple people saw signs that this child and her father were struggling, but poverty and grief and addiction carry so much stigma that nobody wanted to interfere. We need to change that culture. We need to make it normal to say, "I see you struggling, let me help," before a child has to call 911 from a laundry. The speech resonated deeply, and the Families First program quickly gained traction. Within months, it had connected dozens of families with resources ranging from food assistance to mental health counseling to addiction recovery support. David was asked to share his story at one of the program's support group meetings for fathers. He was terrified at first. The idea of standing in front of strangers and admitting his failures felt impossible. But Dr. Chen encouraged him, reminding him that his story could be someone else's lifeline. So one evening, David stood in a circle of men who looked as uncomfortable and desperate as he once had, and he told his truth. "My name is David Cooper, and I'm an alcoholic," he began, the words easier now after months of AA meetings. 3 years ago, I lost my wife to a health condition we couldn't afford to treat. 2 years ago, I lost my job and my sense of purpose. 18 months ago, I lost myself to alcohol and depression, and I almost lost my daughter because of it." He shared the whole story, sparing no detail of his failures, the neglect that had nearly killed Lily, the moment when officers brought him to the hospital, and he realized how close he'd come to becoming his daughter's tragedy rather than her father. "I'm not standing here as some success story who has it all figured out," David said, his voice steady despite the emotion. "I'm standing here as a guy who hit absolute rock bottom, who failed his kid in the worst possible way, and who was given a chance to do better. Not everyone gets that chance. I'm here because my daughter was brave enough to ask for help, because strangers cared enough to provide it, and because I was desperate enough to accept it." He looked around the circle at faces reflecting various stages of struggle. "If you're here, you're already doing something right. You're acknowledging there's a problem. That's the first step. The rest is just showing up, day after day, doing the work even when it's hard, accepting help even when pride says you shouldn't need it. and remembering that being a good father doesn't mean being perfect. It means being present and trying. Several men approached him after, sharing their own stories, asking questions, seeking hope. David gave them his phone number, told them to call any time, and meant it. He'd been given so much help when he needed it. Paying that forward felt like both obligation and privilege. Lily, meanwhile, had become something of a quiet advocate among her peers at school. When a new girl arrived mid-year, clearly struggling with a difficult home situation, Lily was the first to befriend her. She shared her lunch without making a big deal of it, included the girl in playground games, and eventually, carefully mentioned that if anyone at home was having trouble, there were people at school who could help. The school counselor, Ms. Roberts, noticed Lily's compassionate outreach and called her in for one of their regular check-ins. "Lily, I've observed you being very kind to Emma, the new student. That's wonderful, but I want to make sure you're not taking on too much responsibility for other people's problems. You're still a kid yourself." Lily considered this seriously. "I know, but I remember what it felt like when nobody noticed I needed help. I don't want anyone else to feel invisible like that. So I just try to see people and be nice. Is that okay?" Ms. Roberts felt her eyes mist. "That's more than okay. That's beautiful. Just remember that being kind doesn't mean you have to fix everyone's problems. Sometimes just seeing them and being their friend is enough." "That's what Mrs. Martinez told me," Lily said. "She says I have a big heart, but I need to remember to take care of myself too." "Mrs. Martinez is very wise," Ms. Roberts agreed. As Lily's 10th birthday approached, David wanted to make it special, to mark not just another year of life, but their first celebration since being reunited. He enlisted the Martinez's help planning a party at the community center, inviting Lily's classmates, neighbors, and all the people who'd been part of their journey. Officer Mitchell and Officer Rodriguez came, bringing a gift that made Lily squeal with delight, a police badge with her name engraved on it, declaring her an honorary junior officer for her bravery. "You called for help when you needed it," Sarah Mitchell told her, kneeling to be at eye level. "That takes more courage than most adults ever have to show. We wanted you to know that you're one of the bravest people we've ever met." Dr. Chen attended, as did Margaret Stone, both of whom had become more than just professionals fulfilling job requirements, but genuine supporters invested in this family's well-being. Even Jennifer Wallace, the dispatcher, made an appearance, finally meeting in person the owner of the small voice that had haunted her thoughts for over a year. "I'm so glad to see you happy and healthy," Jennifer said, hugging Lily gently. "You know, in my job, I don't usually get to know what happens after the call ends. Getting to see you thriving, it means more than you know." Tom Murphy from the auto shop came with his wife, presenting Lily with a savings bond for her future education. "Your dad's a good man and a hard worker," Tom said. "This is for when you're ready for college. Study hard." The party was loud and joyful, filled with laughter and cake and silly party games. At one point, David stood back watching Lily surrounded by friends, her face lit with genuine happiness, and felt overwhelming gratitude. Dr. Chen joined him in observation. "Quite different from a year ago," the therapist remarked. David nodded, his throat tight. "I keep thinking about all the ways this could have gone differently. If Lily hadn't made that call, if the wrong officers had responded, if the judge hadn't been willing to give me a chance, if I hadn't been ready to accept help, any one of those things changes and we're not here right now." "But all those things did happen," Dr. Chen reminded him. "You can acknowledge how close you came to losing everything while also celebrating that you didn't. Both truths exist." It was the kind of wisdom David had learned to appreciate through therapy, the ability to hold multiple realities at once without being destroyed by them. As the party wound down and guests departed with thanks and hugs, Lily helped clean up, chattering about her favorite moments. The Martinezes stayed to help, and when everything was tidy, they all sat together sharing leftover cake. "This was the best birthday ever," Lily declared, chocolate frosting at the corner of her mouth. "Better than when I turned 7? Mrs. Martinez asked, referencing a party she'd thrown during Lily's foster placement. Lily considered. "That was really good too. But this one is better Because Dad is here and healthy and we're together for real now. That's the best present. David pulled his daughter close, kissing the top of her head. You're my best present, baby girl. Every day I get with you is a gift. Later that night, after the Martinezes had gone home and Lily was tucked into bed, David sat at his small kitchen table with a cup of decaf coffee and his journal, a habit Dr. Chen had encouraged him to develop. He wrote about the party, about seeing Lily so happy, about the community that had formed around them. But he also wrote about Anna, his late wife, imagining what she would think of how far they'd come. I hope you're proud of us, he wrote. I hope you can see that we didn't give up, even when it would have been easier to. I hope you know that losing you nearly destroyed me. But Lily saved us both. She's so much like you, brave and kind and stronger than anyone should have to be. I'm trying to be the father you believed I could be, the man I was when you were alive. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying. He closed the journal and sat in the quiet apartment, listening to the ordinary sounds of life, the hum of the refrigerator, distant traffic, the creak of floorboards as the building settled. These were the sounds of normalcy, of stability, of a life rebuilt from ruins. They were the most beautiful sounds he'd ever heard. Months continued to pass, each one adding layers of healing and growth. David was promoted to senior mechanic at the shop, a recognition of his skill and reliability. The raise meant he could start saving money, building the financial cushion that would protect them from future crises. Lily joined the school soccer team and discovered she loved the combination of teamwork and competition. David never missed a game, standing on the sidelines cheering, often joined by the Martinezes or Officer Mitchell when her schedule allowed. On the one-year anniversary of Lily's 911 call, David and Lily marked it privately but intentionally. They went to the community laundry where it had all come to a head, but this time they went together, on purpose, to reclaim the space from its painful associations. Frank, the elderly gentleman who'd witnessed that day, was there again. He'd become something of a friend, always greeting them warmly when their paths crossed. You two doing laundry? He asked with a knowing smile. Yep, Lily said cheerfully, carrying a basket almost as big as she was. Dad taught me how to sort colors from whites. That's important knowledge, Frank agreed seriously. Your dad's a good teacher. They did their laundry side by side, talking about ordinary things, school assignments, work projects, weekend plans. To any observer, they were just another father and daughter accomplishing a mundane task together. But David and Lily both understood the significance of being there, of transforming this place from a site of trauma to just another spot in their life's landscape. As they folded warm, clean clothes, Lily said quietly, I'm glad I called 911 that day. David's hands stilled on the towel he was folding. Me too, baby. Even though everything that came after was hard, I'm glad too. Because look where we are now. Lily nodded, then added, I think maybe bad things can turn into good things if people work really hard and help each other. It was a profound observation from someone so young, reflecting wisdom earned through difficult experience. I think you're absolutely right, David said, pulling her into a side hug. And I think you're one of the smartest people I know. They finished their laundry and walked home together through the Riverside neighborhood. Now genuinely a community for them, rather than just a place they lived. People waved and called greetings. Mrs. Santos from the corner store offered Lily a lollipop. Mr. Peterson, who ran the community center, stopped to chat about the success of the family's first program. This was what safety felt like, David realized. Not the absence of problems or challenges, but the presence of connection and support. Having people who knew your name and your story and cared about your well-being. Being part of something larger than yourself. That evening, David helped Lily with her homework at the kitchen table, just as he did every school night now. She was working on a writing assignment about heroes, and she'd chosen to write about Officer Mitchell. Is it okay if I read it to you? Lily asked when she finished. I'd love to hear it, David said, setting aside the bills he'd been organizing, all current and paid, a small miracle he never took for granted. Lily read aloud. My hero is Officer Sarah Mitchell. She helped me when I was scared and didn't know what to do. She was kind and made me feel safe. She made sure I got help and didn't give up on my family. Heroes don't just save people from bad guys. Sometimes heroes help people save themselves. Officer Mitchell helped my dad learn how to be healthy again, and helped me learn that asking for help is brave, not weak. That's why she's my hero. David found himself blinking back tears. That's beautiful, Lily. And true. Officer Mitchell really did help save us. She said I was brave too, Lily added. She said calling 911 was the bravest thing, but I was just scared and didn't know what else to do. Sometimes being brave means doing the thing you're scared to do because you have to, David told her. That's exactly what you did. You were terrified, but you asked for help anyway. That's the definition of courage. Lily thought about this, then smiled. Then I guess we're both brave. You were scared to go to treatment and do therapy, but you did it anyway. David laughed, surprised by her insight. You know what? You're absolutely right. We're both brave. The school year progressed, bringing with it the typical milestones and challenges of 4th grade. Lily struggled with long division, but mastered it with patient tutoring from David and Mr. Martinez. She had a falling out with a friend over a misunderstanding, but worked through it with skills she'd learned in her sessions with Ms. Roberts. She scored the winning goal in a soccer game and beamed as her cheering section, David, the Martinezes, and several neighbors, celebrated her success. These were the ordinary moments that made up a childhood, and David treasured every single one, knowing how close they'd come to losing this chance at ordinary. As summer approached, David planned a special trip for just the two of them, a weekend camping at a state park a few hours away. It would be their first vacation, modest but meaningful. They borrowed camping gear from Mr. Martinez and packed supplies carefully, Lily consulting the checklist she'd made with characteristic thoroughness. The weekend was perfect in its imperfection. It rained the first night, teaching them valuable lessons about properly securing a tent. David burned the hot dogs over the campfire, making them laugh. They hiked to a waterfall and swam in the cold lake, played card games in the tent, and told stories by firelight. On their last night, lying in sleeping bags looking up at stars visible through the tent's mesh ceiling, Lily asked the question David had been wondering when she'd bring up. Dad, do you think you'll ever date anyone? Like get married again? David considered carefully. Someday, maybe. I loved your mom very much and I'll always love her. But Dr. Chen helped me understand that loving her memory doesn't mean I can't eventually love someone else too. They'd be different kinds of love. But right now, my focus is on being the best dad I can be for you and staying healthy. Everything else can wait. I think that's good, Lily said. But if you did find someone, I think it would be okay. Mom would want you to be happy. David's chest tightened with emotion. How'd you get so wise? I learned it from you and Dr. Chen and Mrs. Martinez, Lily said practically. They all say that love doesn't run out. You can love lots of people and it doesn't make any of the love less. That's exactly right, David whispered. They fell asleep to the sounds of the forest around them, safe in their little tent, a father and daughter who'd found their way back to each other through the darkness. When they returned home, tanned and happy and full of stories, they found their apartment building buzzing with activity. A new family was moving in down the hall, and David noticed familiar signs: stressed parents, kids who looked uncertain, belongings that suggested limited resources. Instead of looking away as he once might have, David approached. Hey, I'm David Cooper from 3B. This is my daughter Lily. Welcome to the building. The father, looking exhausted, managed a grateful smile. Thanks. I'm Marcus. This is my wife Teresa, and our kids James and Sophia. We're still getting our bearings. It's a good building, friendly neighbors, David said. Then taking a breath, he added, Look, I know moving is expensive and overwhelming. If you need anything, to borrow tools, need recommendations for schools or services, anything, just knock. We're around. Teresa's eyes misted slightly. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Over the following weeks, David and Lily helped the new family settle in small ways. Lily offered to show James and Sophia around the neighborhood. David shared information about the family's first program when he noticed Marcus looking stressed. They invited them to a community barbecue at the park. One evening, Marcus knocked on David's door, looking uncomfortable. "Hey, I hate to ask, but do you know anything about addiction recovery resources? I've been struggling, and Teresa says I need to get help before it gets worse. I see you've got AA literature on your shelf, so I thought maybe." David invited him in, and they talked for 2 hours. David shared his story honestly, gave Marcus contact information for meetings and counselors, offered to go with him to his first AA meeting. It was a full-circle moment that David recognized as significant, being on the helping side rather than the desperate side, though he remembered vividly what the desperate side felt like. "The fact that you're asking for help before you hit rock bottom," David told Marcus. "That's huge. I waited until I'd already lost almost everything. You're being smarter than I was." Marcus looked relieved. "My kids need me present and sober. I can't be a good father if I'm drowning in a bottle." "No," David agreed. "You can't. But recognizing that is the first step toward actually being that good father." He thought about how to phrase what he wanted to say next. "Look, recovery is hard. There will be days you want to quit. Having someone to call during those moments can make the difference. Give me your number. I'll be that person for you if you need it." They exchanged numbers and Marcus left, looking less burdened. After he'd gone, Lily, who'd been doing homework in her room but had heard some of the conversation, came out. "You helped him like people helped you," she observed. "Yeah," David said. "That's how it works. We pass on what we received. It's how we make meaning out of hard things, by using them to help someone else." Lily nodded, filing this lesson away with all the others she was learning about how to be a human in the world. Summer deepened, bringing long days filled with simple pleasures. David taught Lily to ride the bike the Martinezes had given her for her birthday. They started a small container garden on their apartment balcony, growing tomatoes and herbs. They established a weekly movie night tradition, taking turns picking films and making popcorn. These rituals of ordinary family life felt extraordinary to David, each one a small miracle of normalcy he'd never take for granted. The family's first program continued to grow, and David was asked to join its advisory board. At meetings, he worked alongside social workers, teachers, police officers, and other community members to identify ways to better support struggling families. His perspective as someone who'd been on the receiving end of services proved invaluable. "We need to reduce the stigma," David emphasized at one meeting. "I was drowning and couldn't ask for help because I was ashamed. By the time people intervened, my daughter was in crisis. If there'd been a way to get support earlier without feeling like a failure, we might have avoided the worst of it." His input helped shape programs that were proactive rather than reactive, that offered support before crisis rather than only after catastrophe. Sarah Mitchell, also on the advisory board, often found herself thinking about how different things might have been if such programs had existed when the Cooper family first started struggling. One evening after a board meeting, she and David grabbed coffee at a nearby diner. "You know," Sarah said, "I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of cases. Most don't end the way yours did. Most kids who call 911 from laundries don't get to go home again." David stirred his coffee, absorbing this. "What makes the difference? Why did our story end differently?" Sarah considered carefully. "A lot of factors. Lily's resilience, your willingness to do the work, the timing of intervention, access to resources, a judge who believed in second chances, the community support that materialized. Honestly, it was a perfect storm of positive factors. Not everyone gets that lucky." "So what happens to the others?" David asked quietly. "The ones who don't get the perfect storm?" Sarah's expression was sad. "Some kids end up in long-term foster care. Some parents never get sober or stable enough for reunification. Some families just break and don't get put back together. It's the hard reality of this work." David felt the weight of his own fortune. "Then I guess Lily and I have a responsibility. We got this chance that not everyone gets. We should use it to help make more chances for others. That's exactly what you're doing, Sarah assured him. Your voice on this board, your willingness to share your story Marcus down the hall who might avoid the worst because you were honest with him. That's how we change things. One family, one conversation, one intervention at a time. They talked for another hour about systemic changes that could help more families, about the intersection of poverty, mental health, and child welfare, about how to build communities that caught people before they fell, rather than only picking them up after they'd crashed. When David finally got home, Lily was already asleep, worn out from a day of playing with neighborhood kids. David stood in her doorway watching her sleep, this fierce, brave, resilient child who'd saved them both. He thought about all the children who didn't have happy endings, whose parents couldn't or wouldn't do the work, whose systems failed them, whose communities didn't catch them in time. His heart ached for them even as he felt grateful for his own daughter's safety. The next morning, David made his regular call to his sponsor, a practice he'd maintained faithfully for over a year. "I'm struggling with survivor's guilt," he admitted. "I'm so grateful for where we are, but I keep thinking about all the families who don't make it, all the kids who don't get saved. Why us? Why did we get the miracle?" His sponsor, a man named Raymond who'd been sober for 15 years, listened patiently. "That's the wrong question, David. The right question is, what will you do with the miracle you received? You can't save everyone, but you can be a light for someone finding their way out of darkness. That's enough." It was a reframing David needed, permission to celebrate his own healing without guilt, coupled with motivation to extend help to others. He carried that perspective forward, letting it inform his volunteer work, his conversations with Marcus, his parenting of Lily. As autumn approached and a new school year loomed, Lily prepared to start 5th grade with excitement rather than anxiety. She'd grown physically and emotionally over the past year, becoming more confident and self-assured. Her teacher from 4th grade, Mrs. Patterson, stopped by during back-to-school prep to check in. "Lily, I'm so proud of how you've thrived this year," Mrs. Patterson said warmly. "Your new teacher is lucky to have you." Lily beamed. "Thank you for helping me. You always made me feel like I could do things even when they were hard." Mrs. Patterson hugged her. "That's because you can do hard things. You've already proven that." The first day of school arrived with the typical mixture of excitement and nervousness. David walked Lily to the bus stop, snapping the obligatory first day of school photo, marveling at how much could change in a year. Last September, Lily had been in foster care, and David had been in rehab. This September, they were together, healthy, and looking forward rather than just surviving. As the bus pulled away with Lily waving from the window, David headed to work, stopping first at an AA meeting, his regular morning routine that grounded him. At the shop, Tom Murphy had started letting David train newer mechanics, recognizing his skill and patience. David discovered he enjoyed teaching, breaking down complex problems into manageable steps, helping someone else develop competence and confidence. His life had found a rhythm and purpose that felt sustainable. Evenings remained sacred family time, homework help, dinner together, conversations about their days, the small rituals that built connection and trust. Weekends included time with the Martinezes, community events, soccer games, and quiet afternoons at home. They visited Anna's grave monthly, bringing flowers and updating her on their lives, keeping her memory present while also moving forward. For Lily's 11th birthday the following spring, she requested something specific. She wanted to volunteer. "There are kids who need help like I needed help," she explained to David and the Martinezes as they planned the celebration. "I want my birthday to be about helping them." They arranged for her party to be a volunteer day at the community center's family support program, with her friends and their parents joining to sort donations, pack care packages, and prepare welcome baskets for families in crisis. It was unconventional, but it was purely Lily taking her experience and transforming it into compassion for others. David watched his daughter organize her friends, explain what different items were for, share in age-appropriate terms why this work mattered. He saw Anna in her, but also something uniquely Lily, a strength forged in fire, a compassion born from understanding suffering, a determination to make meaning from pain. After the volunteer work, they had cake and games at home, but the day's focus had been on giving rather than receiving, and Lily glowed with the satisfaction of meaningful work. "Best birthday ever," she declared that night as David tucked her in. "Did you get everything you wanted?" he asked, smoothing her hair. "Better," Lily said. "I got to help people feel less alone. That's better than presents." David kissed her forehead, his heart full to bursting. "I love you, my brave, beautiful, kind girl." "I love you too, Dad. Thank you for getting better." It was a simple statement, but it carried the weight of their entire journey. Acknowledgement of where they'd been, gratitude for where they'd arrived, and hope for where they were heading. As David left her room, he whispered a prayer of thanks to whatever forces had guided them through darkness into light, had given them chance after chance until they finally got it right, had surrounded them with people who cared enough to help. Their story could have ended in tragedy, in loss, in brokenness that never healed. Instead, it became a testimony to resilience, redemption, and the transformative power of community. Not because they were special or deserving, but because someone noticed, someone cared, someone intervened, and they both chose to accept the help and do the hard work of change. That's all it takes sometimes: noticing, caring, intervening, accepting, working. Simple concepts that create miracles when applied with consistency and compassion. And that's the real ending to this story. Not a fairy tale conclusion where everything is perfect, but a real-life continuation where things are good enough, where people are whole enough, where love and support and effort create safety and stability and hope. This is how families heal. This is how communities transform. This is how a little girl who called 911 from a laundry and a broken father who'd lost his way both found their way home to each other and to themselves. And they lived not happily ever after, but purposefully ever after, meaningfully ever after, connectedly ever after, which in the end is better than any fairy tale because it's real, it's earned, and it's theirs.